In this video, we're going to analyze why this is the single greatest weapon in the history of Ninjago. But not in the way that you think. We're going to zoom out and look at the show's history as a whole, get a little meta, and take a closer look at Lord Ras as a character, along with a bunch of other factors that all connect in a really interesting way. If you enjoy deeper breakdowns like this, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. Without further ado, let's get into it. At its core, Ninjago is about conflict. And in this show, conflict is almost always expressed through combat. Weapons are everywhere. Swords, scythes, staffs, blades. They're a huge part of the show's identity. Entire seasons revolve around them. Entire toy waves are built around them. They're iconic. The 4 golden weapons are hands down the most iconic items in the entire franchise, for example. But over the years, I've started to notice a pattern, almost a formula. There's a certain way fights tend to play out, a certain rhythm, a certain set of invisible rules that the show rarely breaks. And once you see it, you really can't unsee it. So before we even talk about this weapon specifically, we need to establish that foundation. We need to understand how Ninjago fights have traditionally worked, because only then can we see why this weapon in particular is so different. Ninjago is primarily aimed at a younger audience, so there's only so much the show can get away with in terms of visible injury. If 2 human characters are fighting with swords, under normal circumstances, they are not actually allowed to slice each other. No blood, no severed limbs, no lasting physical damage. So when you're watching a sword fight, it's kind of obvious how it's going to end. Blades clash, someone gets knocked back, maybe they're disarmed, but a clean direct hit, that almost never happens. There are special circumstances though. Characters who aren't fully human, or who are in some kind of simulation, alternate realm, or non-real environment, aren't bound by the same limitations. The writers have got no problem showing someone like Zane get torn apart or heavily damaged, for example, because he's a robot. He can break without it feeling disturbing. He can be rebuilt. Basically, the more unrealistic the situation is, the more freedom the show has. This also ties back to my previous video, where we look at the broader impact of standards and practices, which is the division that ensures the show stays appropriate for its target audience. Those restrictions don't directly write the story, but they absolutely shape what the writers and animators are allowed to show. So now we have the rules laid out. If a character is portrayed as realistic and human within the world of the show, they can't be properly struck by a sharp weapon unless they're in some kind of special circumstance. Which means that if someone is wielding something genuinely dangerous, like a sword, shuriken, scythe, dagger, spear, or even something like fire as an element, they're inherently limited in what they could actually do in a fight without crossing a line. And that limitation has defined Ninjago's combat choreography for over a decade. The ninja themselves actually shifted towards relying more heavily on their elemental powers, rather than traditional weapons. Powers allow for impact. They allow for characters to actually hit each other, to blast, launch, slam, or knock back opponents, without implying realistic injury. It even explains some of the stranger fight choreography choices in past seasons, like in Seabound, where Jay ends up fighting the main villain with a stick, not a blade, not something that implies slicing damage, just blunt force. So why do I bring all this up? Because it seems like the writers of Ninjago, Dragons Rising, are finally ready to address this limitation in a major way. For the first time in a long time, the main antagonist, Lord Ras, doesn't wield a sword. He wields a hammer, and that changes everything. A hammer is blunt. A hammer implies impact, not slicing. It can slam, it can crush, it can send someone flying across a room. And most importantly, it can actually connect. For the first time in years, we have a villain whose primary weapon is fully usable within the boundaries of the show. No awkward blade clashes, no endless disarming, no choreography built around avoiding the obvious implication of what the weapon should do. When Ras swings his hammer, people get hit, and the action immediately feels heavier because of it. The fights in Dragons Rising feel more decisive, more forceful. Ras doesn't just stand around posturing, he dominates scenes physically. He controls space, he overpowers opponents, he steals every scene he's in because his weapon allows him to. And to make it even better, this isn't just any hammer, It's a source dragon icon. It's plot relevant. It actually matters to the larger story. But this isn't just about one weapon being cool. It's about what that weapon represents for the series as a whole. Because in many ways, this hammer feels like the first time Ninjago has found a real workaround to a restriction that's shaped the show for over a decade. And if they were clever enough to solve a limitation like that, I genuinely wonder what else these writers have up their sleeve. So that's why the dragon icon of strength might just be the greatest weapon in the show's 15-year history. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making this video. Let me know which Ninjago weapon is your favorite, and have a good one.